weird was this called with the term immersive sim now? Dinga and I, Dinga Bakaba, a director of Deathloop for those who don't know, had a long conversation about the past, present, future of immersive sim games, and essentially what it means for a game to be immersive. Now, as one of the pioneers of this subgenre, of this essence of game design, I want you to elaborate that what really is immersive sim, and when do you call a game with that term?
First of all, I think I'm probably the second generation of designers that claim to be doing immersive sim, and it's a weird word that is a mouthful, and a lot of people might disagree of what makes an immersive sim or not. There's been a YouTube video made by I can't remember the name of the channel, where he lists 40 immersive sims of all time. Right, and 4 of my games are in there, or 5 actually. All of them, except Weird West, because it was before Weird West. So I guess I'll say okay. I guess I'm legit in the immersive sim thing then, because that was legitimized by
Trust me, you are.
Deus sexes and all of this world, but it's always a little vulnerable to say, let me tell you what immersive sims are, because it's a bit of a blurry science. You ask like the 5 or 6, let's say, immersive sims torchbearers that are still around, and we might all have different answers. If you ask Ken Levine, he might have different answers than mine, or Harvey Smith. But for me, it's all about the gray area, if it means anything. It's not what the designers had planned. It's not what the story was authored. It's not. It's like the intersection. It's like where everything meets in a way that is handled by the systems and the simulation. So we as designers, we try to portray a painting where we have, we have our story, and our story, it's authored obviously, and it hinges on top of a lore. But also, if you're making an immersive sim, most probably the story you're gonna make it multi-branching, so that you allow for possibilities to the player. And so for me, all your aspects that make your game, whether it's the story, the world definition, the systems, the choices that you have, should, all of them, if you want to make an immersive sim, should encourage somehow possibilities, player choice, and a variety of possibilities, I think. So that's why at the story level, you do that. Then at the system level, you do that too. You make your your character being able to grow in different ways, and this is authored. This is pre-planned. Your architecture, your level design, you make it in a way that, you can go through the main door, you can go through the thing, the roof, etc., and you don't cheat. The full location actually is real. Like, it's not like a theater movie kind of like decorum where it's all flat and you just have like a long road full of monsters that you shoot. But instead, it's like you can go behind the building, under the building, above the building, etc. And all of this combined, if you look at it, it gives a lot of possibilities. But so far, all of those possibilities are kind of authored. But now if you look at the systems themselves, like how you create an entity, like an AI, instead of scripting the AI, instead of making it like the AI is going to pop on a trigger volume because the player finally went into the corridor, and then the AI is there ready to shoot and saying this like the same phrase, the same thing that it says to every players that come there. Instead, you make the AI as like a little autonomous entity that moves in the corridors and looking for danger without knowing where the player is, if the player is even. And to that AI, you of course you do all those little behaviors. You say, a noise is something that you'd be interested in. a call for help from another AI is another thing that is interesting to you. Like it puts you in high alert, etc. So you give all those rules, and all those rules are logical. They kind of make sense, but they are in abstraction of what's really happening in the game. So you have what the story is trying to tell the player. You have these AIs, and not just the AIs, but like the rules for the door that opens if you touch it, that pushes the physics if there are some physics on the way. The physics makes a noise, etc., etc. So all these entities in the world, they're doing their own thing. Meanwhile, there's a story that is trying to be told, partially with the lore, partially with the mission, partially with the plot, which maybe there are some scripted scenes or whatever, and all these things fight together. Or actually, if you want to look at a positive on a positive note, it's not that they fight together; it's that they are like in some sort of they make this musical together where everybody is doing their thing, and for the benefit of the player, and that will create hopefully an immersive sim where the player has a high level of agency in this world and is gonna be surprised by what they can do to the game and how the game can respond to their actions, and all of this fall back on its feet, and that to me makes an immersive sim. So from a player standpoint, you are in a world where you feel that it's so real, not necessarily realistic, but it's another world where there are rules that are consistent and that is worth exploring, that you care for, responds to your actions, in which you can do things and the world adapts and it's not cheating with you. That to me is an immersive sim.
Exactly. Like every action you take, it has a reaction from the game. And it's good because if you're successful in your task in the game, then you truly believe that it's you who did that. It's not some predetermined thing that a game designer or level designs with it. Like, I came up with this plan and the game responded to this plan of mine and it's working perfectly. That is why it's exciting to play the game Weird Twist for the second time. Because kind of you understand what's going on. Like, oh, I know who's here, who's there. My last approach, I know. And then in the middle of the way, you're like, wait, what if I just do this and do that? And it changes and the game responds. And it's,
yeah. I mean, in a way, it's another way to say all of this would be very similar to what a dungeon master would do in a table and in a paper roll, because you would know that the villain has this object that is needed for to go to the next step, for example, and that object would be in either in his inventory or in a chest or whatever. The chest would have a key. The key would be somewhere in the world. And really the dungeon master, the human dungeon master here, is setting up a frame. And then the players, the team, are trying to navigate through all of that, and they can improvise. And then the dungeon master has to improvise to make sure that the story always goes, right? And video games don't often do that. Video games will say, well, no, the key or the object will appear at the end once the player has done what it's supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to meet the villain. The villain is going to say, well, if you do this for me, I'll give you that object. And that's it. And it's a cinematic. You did not have a choice. And then you do the mission, and then you come back, and then there's another cinematic, and they give you the object. And now next to the next mission. To me, that's a missed opportunity for a lot of emotions, a lot of things that are gonna, because if I can kill that person directly instead of doing the mission, then it triggered some interesting emotions to me, like maybe guilt, maybe curiosity, or like I'd be like, oh Jesus, they support that. That's amazing. And also I feel like the game is not cheating with me. I feel like, well, that object was actually on that person for real. It's in their inventory. It kind of makes sense.